welcome to this explainer. Today we're opening up a frankly fascinating legal dossier. We're going to conduct a rigorous forensic autopsy of the CryptoZoo case. We are completely stripping away the internet drama, the loud social media accusations, and the emotional outrage, so we can look exclusively at the cold, hard legal mechanics of a high-profile cryptocurrency failure.
Promising a game will make players rich sounds like a guarantee, but in federal court, it can be classified as simple marketing hype. This is the stark duality between public perception and legal reality that we are going to untangle today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our case brief agenda. We'll start with the facts of the promise and failure, examine the class action complaint, analyze the mitigation efforts, review the final ruling, and finally, look at the precedent and aftermath.
Section 1. The facts, the promise, and the failure.
To really understand this legal battle, we kind of have to look back to the launch in September 2021. CryptoZoo was pitched by influencer Logan Paul as this hybrid NFT game where users would buy digital eggs to hatch and earn a yield. During this pre-sale phase, nearly 3,000 base eggs were minted at 0.1 Ethereum. That garnered over $2.5 million in investment, but the game never actually launched. By late 2022, independent investigations were alleging the project was a scam, leaving buyers holding non-functional NFTs. All of this eventually culminated in February 2023 with a massive class action lawsuit.
And here is the formal filing, Holland versus CryptoZoo Inc., filed in a Texas federal court. A total of 137 plaintiffs joined this suit. They essentially accused Logan Paul, Eduardo Ibanez, Jake Greenbaum, and other associates of executing what is colloquially known in the crypto space as a rug pull. You know, a scheme where developers solicit funds promising certain benefits, only to completely abandon the project once the money is collected. It's honestly fascinating to see this casual internet terminology translate directly into a formal federal court setting, where the stakes suddenly shift from just online reputation to devastating legal liability.
Section 2. The complaint. Examining the class action. Now, to win in federal court, you need a lot more than just angry customers. You need actual statutory violations. And this brings us to a massively important legal hurdle, the Howey test. The federal court faced the really difficult task of determining if Zoo tokens and CryptoZoo NFTs legally qualified as unregistered securities. For context, the Howey test requires 3 specific things: an investment of money, in a common enterprise, with the expectation of profit derived solely from the efforts of others. The defense actually didn't dispute those first 2 elements. That made the third element, the expectation of profit based on the creator's efforts, the absolute battleground of this entire case.
Based on that legal framework, the plaintiff's specific claims were laid out incredibly aggressively. They claimed the tokens were absolutely unregistered securities. They alleged a clear breach of contract due to the failure to deliver a functional product by that promised September 2021 date. And on top of that, they accused the defendants of willful market manipulation, claiming the founders engaged in stealth trading and failed to support the community while the asset values just plummeted.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the defense countered that expectation of profit argument. They presented documentary evidence straight from Discord. Here, Logan Paul cites the project's original white paper, writing, "As outlined in the white paper, Zoo was created to support CryptoZoo and was not intended to be an investment vehicle." This successfully established the defense's early documented stance against investment guarantees. It's a critical piece of evidence working directly against those Howey test requirements.
Furthermore, we have this direct instruction from Paul in the very same Discord server, stating point blank, "Please do not put any more money into CryptoZoo." In a court of law, direct documentary evidence like this is highly effective. It actively contradicted the plaintiff's claims of ongoing, willful fraudulent promotion by Paul himself to keep pumping money into a failing ecosystem.
Section 3. The mitigation, the buyback indemnification.
As the legal heat intensified, Logan Paul responded. But we must view this next move not just as a moral apology, but as a highly calculated legal strategy. In early 2024, Paul announced a massive personal financial commitment, $2.3 million of his own funds to facilitate a buyback program.
However, the terms of this buyback were incredibly strict, and this right here is where the legal maneuvering is just brilliant. The buyback only covered base eggs and base animals at their original 0.1 ETH costs. It explicitly excluded the massive losses associated with the Zoo token. And most importantly, to even claim the refund, investors had to agree to strict indemnification terms. They essentially had to waive their right to sue Paul or his affiliates for any damages, and they had to acknowledge that accepting the refund was in no way an admission of legal responsibility by Paul. By accepting the money, plaintiffs effectively forfeited their place in the class action entirely.
Section 4. The ruling. Puffery versus fraud.
This brings us to the real climax of the legal narrative. In late November 2025, a Texas federal judge made a definitive decision, and the whole thing hinged on the legal distinction between fraud and puffery. You see, the law operates on very strict definitions. Puffery refers to exaggerated, vague, or broad promotional statements. Things like calling a project a really fun game that makes you money. The court deems that no reasonable person would rely on these hyperbolic marketing claims as an ironclad, factual, or contractual guarantee.
So the crucial point is captured perfectly in this quote summarizing the outcome. Judge Alan D. Albright reviewed the claims and ultimately dismissed the case with prejudice. As Paul's attorney noted, the district judge held that, in the strict eyes of the law, the promotional statements simply amounted to puffery. No reasonable juror could find them strictly misleading or legally fraudulent under the statutes presented. Just like that, the lawsuit was dead.
Section 5. Precedent and aftermath. Vindication versus recovery.
Zooming out to look at the broader implications here, we have to carefully contrast the objective legal victory achieved in the courtroom with the tangible financial reality experienced by the consumer, and this brilliantly illustrates that divide. On one side, we have total legal vindication. The class action was entirely dismissed with prejudice, meaning it literally cannot be refiled. Furthermore, Paul's separate defamation lawsuit against the investigator CoffeeZilla was eventually settled out of court. But on the flip side, we have the financial recovery. An estimated $16 million in Zoo token losses remained entirely uncompensated, and the promised CryptoZoo game simply never existed. The law, as it's written, protected the promoter, but it certainly did not make the ecosystem's investors whole.
Which leaves us with a highly provocative and vital question for the future of digital assets. Where exactly does marketing hype legally cross into securities fraud? The CryptoZoo case file suggests that the boundary is actually much further out than many investors assumed. The law requires strict proof of a guarantee, and broad enthusiasm, well, it isn't a crime. Thank you for joining me for this analysis. Subscribe for sharp legal case files, and I'll see you in the next explainer.